Steve, we set out a survey. We asked a ton of questions, not a ton. It was a couple questions. It was just something that was itching around in my brain. And I wanted to find out. And I said, hey, Steve, what are your thoughts on this? And you're like, do it. And so we did it. We asked a couple questions basically related to how you consume Penn State sports media. I have the results. Steve has not seen or heard or read any of the results.
No, I haven't. I don't know if they've been audited, if they're in some
they have been
mayonnaise jar on the porch of Funkin' Wagnalls or whatever that is. Like, I'm waiting.
Yes. So the white smoke is pluming out of our chimney or whatever. Okay. Here we go, Steve. First off, I want to say thank you to everybody that filled this out. We had over 100 responses, which floored both of us because you took a little bit of time to do something for us. So thank you if you filled out the survey. Good to know that people actually pay attention. Steve, we had 18 different states show up on our how many states, including California, Wisconsin, Tennessee, and Alaska. Yes, somebody put Alaska. Hopefully,
I know Ben opened the jar of the profanities, but I'm gonna keep my mouth shut and not say "get the F out of here." That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
60, and I think this is important to keep in mind as we go through this. And one of the reasons why we did ask this question, where you live, 62% of the people that responded to us live in PA, and I would say probably, I didn't crunch all of the numbers, but within the surrounding states that touch or very relatively touch PA, it was probably up in the upper 85%, let's say, of people that responded. So keep that in mind as you kind of hear these results, and we go through there. We're actually going to start on the podcast part first, because this is a podcast, and that's interesting. Of the people that answered, 63% of people say they listen to podcasts about Penn State sports, which surprised me a little bit, because I think, I don't know, I still feel like podcasts are relatively new, and I feel like Penn State's audience is relatively older. We joke about the married couple living in York, PA, but I feel like that's our demographic. I'm sure some of it was probably skewed to who we were showing it to, since we did most of this digitally. But I thought that was my first interesting
podcast out there. I mean, there's a good variety of Penn State podcasts, a lot of people who care about it. So I think there's good content there, and I don't do it as much as I probably could. But I think people who pop their earbuds in at work or go on a walk or whatever else, there's a lot of people consuming stuff that way.
I will say I listen to other Penn State podcasts. I listen to Corey Listokey's podcast, the Hardcore Penn State Football podcast, and then I usually will check in on what Lions 247 and Blue White Illustrated are doing. Are you ready for our most listened to podcast?
I'm sitting down.
All right. Numero uno. We're going to go from top down. Number one, 60% of the people that say they listen to podcasts listen to the Lions 247 podcast. That's the number one most listened. Not necessarily surprising, but also somewhat relatively surprising to me. I think that it was that high. 46% of people listen to the Blue White Illustrated podcast, also another podcast that I listen to. I think you get some good insider information on both of those, certainly with Sean Fitz on the Blue White Illustrated podcast now, as well. And then number 3 was a little podcast called Stuff Summer Says, and
we got bronze.
We got bronze, Steve. 25% of people listen to us
since we sent this thing out. That's nice,
except for one guy who said, one guy definitely doesn't. He said, never heard of it. So that was
either that, or he's heard is one of ours pulling our chain. And we
that's true. I don't know. I don't know. All right, are you ready to move on to the reading portion of today's assignment? Okay. So let's start with the places people pay for their Penn State news. Of our responses, 62% pay for at least one service, and 29% pay for at least 2 services. Okay. So there is a sharp drop off. I'm going to let you guess number 1. I think you would be able to get it.
Lions 247?
No, The Athletic is number 1.
Okay.
That 66% of people say that they pay there.
Well, and I think you get more. I mean, because for me, I get the Penn State stuff, but I get all the other national.
You get everything else. That's exactly
what makes that has to be number 1 if you think about it, right? because yeah, you're going to get your Penn State stuff. Audrey's trustworthy. It makes sense. She has good stuff, and you're still going to get college football,
Everybody
college
else.
basketball, NFL, and now the New York Times too.
I think you have to in this day and age. Like, I think if you, it's not to discredit anybody else out there, but if you still value, especially the feature story, I think The Athletic is still like kind of the default place for that. And I think that's why I still subscribe to The Athletic and probably always will. I think I would be upset if an Audrey went away, or some of the other writers that I tend to read on there. I think the big one, we haven't really talked about this, but Andy Staples switching from from The Athletic over to On3 was a bit of a surprise. Interested to see how that all plays out, because that was actually one of the main podcasts we listened to on our drives to State College every weekend, was the Andy Staples show. So we're just having a conversation about that. Number 2 is On3, which is Blue White Illustrated. 48% of people pay for that one. And then number 3 was Lions 247 at 28% of people listening to this. So those are your top 3. Thought that was pretty interesting, especially with how quickly On3 has kind of grown and popped up. That to me seems like it's a loyal to the beat writer, or loyal to the writer type move, more so than anything. I personally don't love the message boards on On3 as much as I like the Lions 247 message boards. I find that I get more information on the Lions 247 ones. But I think when we just had Tyler Calvaruso on the show, but I think both places have equal matter or equal say in the voice. Like, I think you get good information and it's good to hear multiple sides, especially in that kind of that recruiting space, because sometimes they generally all kind of go the same direction, but one might go a little more left or right, depending on their approach to the beat. All right, are you ready for our top 5 places that people read Penn State sports news? All right, number 5, Penn Live at 38% of the respondents said that they get their news from there. I didn't growing up, but I do now, because 1, I know Johnny McGonigal works there. 2, I didn't really know what Penn Live was living on the western half of the state, and I think that was kind of look to the mirror, look to other places. So that came through. Number 4 is The Athletic. That's where is the number 4 place at 42%. As much as it breaks my heart to not see the Daily Collegian at number 3, it's Onward State at number 3. The 45%, just because I'm a Collegian guy through and through. Excited and happy for them, though. All right, the top 2. Are you ready?
Yep.
Number 2 is On3 at 47%. Okay, and number 1 at 50% is Lions 247.
Okay, well, so that's a nice spread there. You got 4 of them all over 40%.
Yeah, so I think to me it's interesting. I think people like the insidery and the behind the scenes stuff. I think that's what the data here says. And I think people still, even though Penn Live has really had a lot of different beat writers over the last few years, people still have a lot of good trust in kind of the hallmark paper in the center part of the state. We'll get into the center part of the state debate. I don't think that Harrisburg's in the southern part of the state, but we'll save that argument for another day. All right, Steve, are you ready for who the people voted as their number 1 beat writer?
I am. How many of these are given?
I'm going to give you 5. I'm not going to give percentages. I don't want to hurt egos.
But you're going 5-1.
Yeah, but we're going 5-1. And just a reminder that if there's somebody not on the list, there was somebody that you didn't get to vote for, you could have wrote them in. There was a write-in section. A couple of people did write some names in. Appreciative of those names. But here are the top 5 according to you. Number 5, my former boss, Neil Rudell. Good to people trust his opinion. Number 4, Sean Fitz is on the list. people probably looking to him mainly for recruiting news. I think that's really what he's known for. I think he tends to have the most inside source data information, I think, of the beat writers, at least in my opinion. Number 3, Dave Jones. He was number 3. Number 2, our just recent guest, Ben Jones. And number 1, are you ready? The People's Champ. I think you know who it is.
I'm typing. I'll see if I can.
Okay. All right. It's Audrey Snyder.
That's what I typed.
Yeah. Okay. Not surprised by that. Not surprised by any of those 5 names being on that list. I think all are great people, all are great writers, all provide great information to the Penn State beat. I just think people really like Audrey. That's all. I think Audrey's got a good personality to her. She works really hard, and it shows, and you can see that in her writing. So
no, The Athletic's the #1 subscription, right? Like there's the thing that pulls with it. So no, and that's
congratulations
a good mix for all the right reasons, right? You got some old school guys.
Yeah.
You've got some folks who do opinion. You got some people who are connected. You got some folks who are creative. It's a good group.
Yeah. Good. Congrats to Audrey. Anything blow you away, to surprise you there on any of that?
No, I mean, I think maybe Neil a little bit, right? But again, with our listenership and your background, right, you're going to get some Altoona people who are there, like, because again, that's the interesting thing about this presence. You've got Ben, who's got no print home, right? Or neither does Audrey, right? And then there's Neil, who's there, and I guess Harrisburg still has a Sunday paper, right?
Right.
Along with Penn Live, they still have a print piece. I mean, Dave stuff goes both places, but no, it's an interesting mix, and I think a good mix.
Yeah. So thank you again to everybody that filled it out. Oh, and I apologize. We also have one more little section. We did ask you for your feedback or what you would tell the beat. So this is us telling the beat. This one, I think I can understand where this person was coming from. This was one of our shorter ones, but way too many people covering the same crap was what they said. And I think we've talked that, we've addressed that with beat writers on here, and you have to pay attention, but oftentimes beat writers will find a way to put their own spin, and the ones that rise to the cream of the crop, the top, so to speak, to me, I think that shows through. That
I think those 5 there are people who
yes,
often veer off, right? Or at least
correct,
have enough experience to add the context to the stuff that is there.
Correct. I think this one is kind of goes along with that. Someone said they allow Franklin to control them for the most part. I don't think I 100% buy that, but I do think that kind of goes along with our previous piece of feedback. So there was that one. On 3 has a great variety of writers covering many different aspects of PSU sports. I did think that one is interesting because they have a relatively robust kind of staff of people covering. You've got Nate, you've got Ryan, you've got Sean Fitz, you've got Thomas Frank Carr. So you've got people kind of really hitting every little aspect. And then, Nate does especially get into more into basketball more than anyone else besides maybe Ben, at least of that crew. So I think that was a good piece of feedback for them. This one is interesting. I think this was probably one of our more well thought out ones. This person says, I think in general, there's a lack of true knowledge about the game and the inner workings of the game and the team amongst the beat. That doesn't mean I don't sincerely like reading them, because I do, but some of the media just slings out lazy takes and does not do a lot of true reporting or digging into why certain things do or don't happen on the field. I think my true favorite on the beat is David Jones, but I got to give a lot of love to Thomas Frank Carr, who does an excellent job of breaking down game film and providing real insight on team strengths and its weaknesses. I don't disagree with that, but I think if you're looking for that type of content, you can find that type of content, or you can kind of, I don't want to say make your own, but you can have that bar kind of conversation with somebody at a bar and have that. I do wish sometimes, I wish that there was a better resource, and it doesn't need to be at Penn State, but maybe more nationally, of breaking down scheme and breaking down why X thing happened that isn't so quick that, like, when you get it on a game, like, I want I like, especially at draft time, when we get like a film study of one single guy, and they break down his highlights, and they break down and they say, okay, here, let's watch this block, like watch it. And then what do you think about it? And then here's how he made the block. Here's what he did well. Here's what he could do better. Those types of things. Yes. I think that's probably the thing that's lacking the most for college football, or really football fans, is there should be better resources on explaining schemes, explaining the positioning, things that if you didn't play the sport, which not a lot of the people on the beat played the sport, at least at Penn State that I know of, I think kind of gives them a pass. And I don't think that's also why they're solely there. I think they're solely there. They're there for other reasons than just here's what happened on the field. Here's what
Right.
didn't happen.
But I don't think that's anybody's, maybe T. Frank, right? Because he's doing more of it. But I think I don't know his full background. I think that it's more reps and having watched stuff and knowing there's nobody on this beat to play Division I football, right? There's nobody on this beat that played, and I know that's not required to be good at it, but to the survey respondents' point, if you want that kind of stuff, I don't think many college football beats are positioned to do that well, right? And the people who are positioned to do it well need to have it pulled out of them so it can be efficient by someone whose job it is these people's jobs. You know, that's why they have analysts and they have announcers and whatever else. And even if you did podcasts or print stuff, getting a player to explain why something works or didn't simply isn't easy, you know,
Yeah,
and beat writers aren't positioned that. So I think it's fair criticism, but it's probably true on every beat of almost every sport, you know, in some way.
Yeah. No, I think that's very, very fair. Okay. The last one was amazing with the number of great kids who passed through the Belisario school that the podcast game is so lame. Well, we made it 100 episodes and nobody's taken us off the air, and we passed through the College of Com. We're doing all right, aren't we, Steve?
100 episodes. Woohoo! I wish I had a bell.
Look at that.
It's very cool.